Been looking for a long time for this place.
It's an amazing cemetery. Kind of overgrown when we got here. It's a lot better now.
We've been working.
Yeah.
So this gentleman, Dr. James Peterson Thweatt, is my 4 times great-grandfather. This property is privately owned now, and I just want to thank the property owners because they very graciously welcomed us to come out and document this cemetery because, you know, it's important, very important.
I'm Robert, and this is Adventures into History. Today I am in Monroe County, Georgia, and we are at the Thweatt-Searcy Family Cemetery. I'm joined again by Mrs. Donna Searcy Wood, who's come to visit another one of her family cemeteries that you've never seen before. So she's going to tell us about it.
We are on property that was once known as the old Thweatt home place. The first Thweatts to come to America came from Little Bolton in Lancashire, England in the 1640s. So they've been here a long time. Many generations later, James Thomas Thweatt bought 4,000 acres in Jones and Hancock counties, Georgia. And this gentleman here is Dr. James Peterson Thweatt. He was born in Hancock County in 1793. On that property. He is the patriarch for the family that you see buried here. He was a surgeon in the War of 1812. Now, if you do the math, he only was 19. Research showed me that back then, medical school was really, your formal education was only about 2 years. After that, it was just kind of on-the-job training. So I imagine he got quite a baptism of fire if he jumped straight into the War of 1812. So he had 1,010 acres in Monroe County that he purchased between 1822 and 1825. He was a farmer and built his medical practice. He grew wheat and cotton. We know that he was successful at that because after the Civil War, everyone received just a blanket pardon. With a couple of exceptions. One of those exceptions was if your estate was valued at over $20,000, you had to apply directly to the president for a pardon. So he did. Apparently he at first had an agent because by this time he was in his late 70s, so he had an agent apply on his behalf and he never heard back. So a couple of months later in October 1865, and these are his words, "In my manhood, a soldier of the War of 1812, and the son of a Virginia soldier in our struggle for independence from principle, fully committed to the teachings of Washington and Jackson, that our federal union must be preserved. No person ever heard me espouse a sentiment in favor of secession, either before or after the passage of the ordinance." And then at the end, he closes with, "I assure you I appreciate the name of American citizen, a title ever dear to me and to my deceased father, the compatriot to the illustrious Washington. May God ever bless you, Mr. President." And he did receive that pardon. We have a copy of that. But then he died 2 years later. So kind of sad.
Dr. James Thweatt, born August 19th, 1793, died April the 4th, 1867. And an incredible monument here that's actually the family has come and repaired it at some time. You can see that this top half was broken off right there at one time and it was mortared back together. So no clue when that was done, I guess.
No. I know that there were family members in Griffin, Georgia that routinely came and took care of it, but they, you know, time passes and people pass away, and so I don't think anybody's been here for quite a while. And it's tall. I mean, it's probably what, 8?
Yeah, I was gonna say, these are some impressive markers here, and those two aren't the tallest in the cemetery, but every marker here is impressive.
So we'll move here to Dr. Thweatt's wife, Frances Flanders Moore. You know, my friend Ralph Bass from Monroe County Historical Society told me, he said, there's just not as much information on the women as there is the men, and that absolutely holds true here. But I am fascinated by the wording of the old obituaries. So they're very poetic, and the language is kind of archaic, but this is what was in the paper after her death. This lady died on the 15th of May, She was the relict of the late Dr. James Thweatt, one of the oldest settlers and most respected citizens of Monroe County, and mother of Mrs. Dr. D.B. Searcy. Mrs. Thweatt was born August 28, 1794, and lived to see a large number of her great-grandchildren. She was very benevolent and kind, and her charities were not confined to her immediate neighborhood, but extended over a large portion of the state. She was in many respects a remarkable lady. For over 60 years, she had been an exemplary member of the Methodist Church and sustained it not only by her moral influence, but with a liberal hand. A very large audience attended her obsequies. I had to look that up. That's just funeral rites, which were conducted by Reverend L.J. Davies. Francis and James only had one child, a daughter, so this is the end of Thweatt as a surname in the family on this branch. But you will see that name used over and over. So their daughter, Camilla, is buried here next to them, but we're going to start with her husband. So now we're here with Dr. Daniel Bartlett Searcy. He is my 3 times great-grandfather. There's an article here that I have that's dated August 11th, 1885, like a week after he died. It says everything better than I could. Dr. D.B. Searcy was born March 17th, 1809 in Baldwin County, Georgia, about 3 miles from Milledgeville. His father, William Searcy Esquire, was a school teacher and farmer who resided many years in that vicinity and afterwards removed to Talbot County, where he died a few years ago, age 96 years. Dr. Searcy was specially educated by his father and afterwards by his brother-in-law, Dr. John B. Gorman. So his brother-in-law was already a medical doctor. Daniel chose the practice of medicine for his profession and graduated at Jefferson Medical College in Philadelphia. That is now Thomas Jefferson University. To go there in those times was no little undertaking, there being no railroads upon which to travel. He went by sea and returned by stagecoach. Can you imagine riding a stagecoach from Philadelphia to Macon? Crazy. Dr. Searcy was for many years worshipful master of Wells Masonic Lodge and was always true to the tenets of the craft. And then it goes in, several months ago he discovered that he had the heart disease, which quickly brought him upon a bed of languishing. For 4 months, he has suffered greatly, growing weaker and weaker all the time until last Saturday. He passed sweetly and beautifully away in the full triumph of the Christian faith. Reverend George Patillo, assisted by Reverend Dr. Leake, officiated at the funeral services Sabbath evening, after which the venerated and beloved form of our distinguished fellow citizen, followed by a great concourse of friends, was conveyed to the family burial ground, where we are today, and there sadly and solemnly laid away in the silent earth, at peace with God and at peace with his fellow man. His body sleeps sweetly amidst the hills he loved so well, while his noble soul, clothed in robes of purity and wearing the crown of life, goes forth a ministering spirit in the realm of endless light. So poetic. I thought it was really sweet. When he moved to Monroe County, after medical school, he actually was mentored by Dr. Thweatt. He met Camilla, the only daughter of Dr. Thweatt, and they were married in 1833. They had 4 children, 2 of whom are buried here, so we'll talk about them in a minute. When Camilla and he married, he took over a lot of the farming responsibilities for his father-in-law. And we know he was successful because he received awards from the Collaparchi Agricultural Society. They had an agricultural fair every year. He got awards for his milled products, for flour, for wheat, and also for cotton. And we also know that he had a grist mill. In fact, he had 2 grist mills powered by the Tobosoffke Creek on his property. And you know, I'm sure that helped the family along as well, because times got tough after the Civil War.
Mark the perfect man, and behold the upright, for the end of that man is peace.
Now we'll come over to Miss Camilla. So this is Camilla James Thweatt. And again, we don't have a lot of information about the women in the family, but I will tell you family stories said she was just as sweet as she could be. Just kind, benevolent, sweet. And also I will tell you, in her will, she directed that before any monies were divided, they were to take $1,000 and construct this wall that you see here today. She gave very specific instructions. She wanted there to be steps for, getting in and out of the walled area, but it looks like maybe they did wrought iron fence instead. I was talking to my cousin Darlene in South Carolina before the trip. We were kind of talking about things, and she said, well, you know why she wanted that fence, don't you? And I said, no, I really don't. She said, because livestock ran free and they had a terrible problem with pigs and hogs, and they could just wreak havoc on a cemetery. So pretty smart to get that done, and it's still standing today.
So Camilla J. Searcy, wife of Dr. D.B. Searcy, born January 12, 1816 and died November 19th, 1885. Searcy on the stone, and there's an epitaph: give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. And another absolutely incredible stone still again has its urn on top.
It's kind of a sad story. So he died August 1st, 1885. She died November 19th. But like 5 days before her, their daughter died, which we're going to see. So, wow, what a lot of loss Camilla had in a really short period of time. Yeah. The Searcy family has done a phenomenal job of documenting information, and we have pictures of most of the people that are buried here, which is incredible. I wanted to thank Ralph Bass from the Monroe County Historical Society. When I reached out to him just looking for the location of this cemetery, he sent me an article that he wrote about 4 portraits that they have hanging in their museum. And it just happens to be Dr. Thweatt and his wife and Dan and Camilla. So we have great pictures of them in color. They're amazing. So I wanted to thank them, and also my cousin Darlene in South Carolina. She has Camilla's photo album, and she scanned in all kinds of pictures. It's amazing. And we also have a book that Dan Searcy, who is from here in Macon, he passed away years ago, but he wrote a book called John Daniel Searcy, His Ancestors and Descendants. It's out of print now. If anybody knows how we can get more of those or get permission to have more printed, we would love to do that. So reach out if you know where we can get those. We'd love to do that. Here we have James Thweatt-Searcy. He served in the Civil War. He was a 2nd lieutenant. He was injured near Richmond, and they sent in a substitute while he came home to recover. He then rejoined his unit, got promoted to 1st lieutenant, and was with that unit until they retired in Augusta, Georgia in 1865. I was surprised to see this headstone here because I have a document that said that his grave was unmarked, and then I also have the application for this headstone from the 1960s, I believe, and they had the wrong name of the cemetery. So the VA had, or whoever, I assume it's the VA that does that, they had marked on there, not found. So this was put here sometime after the 60s. I think we saw something that said 72 in some notes. In the book that I just told you about, there's a story that one of the kids recalled that he would take pieces of newspaper and roll them up and bend the ends down, and he kept them in a cup on the hearth. And when he wanted to light his pipe, he didn't want to waste a match. He would go get that paper and light it in the fire and light his pipe. So I thought that was just a cute little remembrance. This is Sarah Virginia Green. She went by Kitty. And again, we don't have a lot of information about the women, but I will tell you another family story that was passed down was that during the Civil War, when the ladies heard that the Union troops were coming through this area, They collected up all the family silver and jewelry and valuables, buried them out in the fields with the crops. And when they arrived, I don't know which lady it was, but it was one of these, gave the sign of the Eastern Star, which is a female portion of the Masons. She gave that sign to the commanding officer, and they didn't damage anything on their property. They did have some livestock. They camped out there for a couple of days, but nothing was taken, nobody was hurt.
Her stone says Sarah V., wife of J.T. Searcy, June 8, 1833 to June 1st, 1906. That is a big monument right there. It's, again, it's a marble slab sitting on top of a brick foundation. You can see the weight of that monument has caused this marble, which is really rough cut for marble, but it's caused it to bow and crack at the end there. You can see just kind of how it's leaning over. Noticed that earlier when we were...
Yeah, the whole thing's kind of starting to tilt, so
Yeah.
might have to see if we know any repair people.
Yeah. It's interesting how rock bends like that.
It's amazing, because that's probably, what, 3 inches thick?
Yes.
I mean, that's a thick piece of marble. So this is Sarah Caroline Aurelia Searcy. She is the daughter of Dr. Dan and Camilla. She went by Carrie. We'll start here with her husband, though. She was married to Baldwin Fluker Davis Jr. He went away, served in the Civil War. He was shot in the left chest in Petersburg, Virginia, and was sent home. He did not live a long life. He died pretty young, I think in his 30s. Had 5 children. 2 of them are buried here. They died in infancy. You know, we really don't know much about him. He enlisted in the war in 1861. He was promoted to 2nd lieutenant in 1864 and died in 1878. So not too long after the war. So I'm just going to assume he had some complications, because that's a pretty serious injury, I would think.
He was a Mason, and look at all that work on the symbol there. And there's also, was indeed supposed to be something on top of this grave. You can actually still see the metal pin that would have held on an urn or something like that, that should have been on here. Who knows where that got off to. Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord.
This is Carrie Searcy Davis Hollis. She remarried several years after Baldwin died. She married a man named L.O. Hollis, Leonidas Obadiah Hollis. I don't know a whole lot about him after she passed. They had 1 child together, L.O. Jr. He ended up in Macon, and he was in politics. So he was, you know, like a city councilman or something. I don't remember off the top of my head. Their son, L.O. Jr., was in the Spanish-American War, was overseas, came back to the Presidio, was admitted there. He was sick. He received a medical discharge and was sent home and died not too terribly long after that. I don't know exactly what it was, but I did research, and malaria was very, very prevalent. So potentially it could be that. He was in the Philippines. If monument size has anything to do with how much you were loved, I would say that Carrie was very loved. Again, we don't know a lot about her. We know that she inherited 1,000 acres of her grandfather, Dr. Thweatt's property. That property was held in trust because she died so young. Her children were not of age. It was held in trust, and we have a record where it was sold in 1895, and it was 1,000 acres more or less. And they said within the paperwork that it was sold so that her oldest son could get his part of the inheritance to start. He had come of age, so it's kind of leaning, but it is a big stone.
Yeah, it is. And with the great stones behind it, this is a picturesque cemetery. You see all sorts of detail in it. Mrs. S.C.A. Hollis, daughter of D.B. and C.J. Searcy, born January 26, 1849, died November 14th, 1885. May the conquering faith that cheered thee when thy foot on Jordan pressed guide us, sister, while we leave thee in the tomb that Jesus blessed.
You know, it's kind of sad. Carrie, of her children that she had with her first husband, only one of her sons lived to be older than 32 years old. Oh, wow. One of them was a mayor. I mean, yeah, he was the mayor of Griffin, Georgia, owned a hardware business, and he had gotten married, had a child, and while the baby was still an infant, his wife went to visit her family, and while she was gone, he got sick and died, just that quick. And I recently met a descendant of his, a cousin, Bob, and he provided us with a beautiful picture of Carrie that we'll be able to show.
So in addition to these 6 graves with these impressive monuments, behind them and to the sides are the children that we're about to look at, including
more than we expected.
Yeah, including some unmarked ones that we just kind of discovered today.
Right, and we couldn't read them, so let's go see who's who, and we'll see if we can put some perspective on. So this is documented on the guy that wrote the book, Dan Searcy, had documented when he surveyed this cemetery in the 60s that there was this brick-covered, unmarked grave. They didn't know in the 60s who it was, and we still don't know today.
Because this is not Plantation era brick. It's definitely going to be later 1800s brickyard brick. It's still older, of the type that's late 1800s. Another unknown grave. So this is fieldstone. It's planted fieldstone. Child or young adult, maybe teenager. It's a short, well, I don't know. It's hard to say. This family obviously had some wealth. I'm confused as to why this grave wouldn't be marked unless maybe it was something that happened in the post-Civil War Depression. Ruby
Searcy was married to Charlie Searcy, who was a brother of Jim Thweatt-Searcy, and she died in 1895. Not too long after her death, her husband took their son and moved to Texas with that western expansion. So I have her obituary. It's pretty sweet. The death of Mrs. C.R. Searcy occurred at their home near Bolingbroke Thursday evening at 7 o'clock. The deceased had been in feeble health for some time, but apprehensions of her early death were not entertained. But a few years ago, she was a beautiful maiden with life's brightest promise before her. Her marital relations were of short duration, but served to show her true womanhood, her noble worth. Her death was a stroke of deepest sorrow to her husband and many friends. The remains were placed at rest in the family cemetery near their home.
Her home was in?
They lived here in Monroe County. Jim and Kitty's son that died at the age of 21 in 1886, and his name was William Eugene Searcy.
And they didn't have a lot of money?
Not by then. You know, Civil War had come through. They had a sawmill on their property and a grist mill, and you know, I think they were probably really starting to lose some money.
Yeah. You mentioned Bolingbroke?
Oh yeah, Bolingbroke. You know, this property is Bolingbroke, Macon. They didn't know in the 60s who it was, and we still don't know today. And then we have an infant here. Is that, okay, little Abner Holt.
Age 4 months, 1847, son of, what is that,
JT and SB. So that's Jim and Kitty.
Of such is the kingdom of God.
Okay.
Then, beside little Abner, this is little Jimmy, son of B.F. and C.A. Davis, born December 19th, 1871, died July 21st, 1872.
That's one of Carrie's sons, and his name was James Thweatt Davis.
He dwells in realms of endless joy with God above, our darling boy. Beside, there's another unmarked grave, planted fieldstone here, and I think I did find a footstone for it down here somewhere, hiding in the pine straw. So this is definitely a child right here. So there's a footstone, there's a headstone there. Definitely a child in that burial. There's Camilla Thweatt, daughter of B.F. and Caroline Davis, born November 7th and died December 1877. Farewell, Camilla, thou hast not tried the paths of life where grief is met, but beauty like a smile of God upon thy little brow is set. It's a sweet little epitaph. Then there's one more probable grave over here. We've got, again, a planted fieldstone right here. And if we go up somewhere, I found it earlier when we were cleaning up, there's another rock that would serve, there's another planted rock in here somewhere that would serve right there, serve as a headstone. And it's in line with the other unknown graves, and these marked graves are kind of stepped out. Then we've got a couple of more children's graves back here. Cradle style grave right here. That is, we can't really see it for the pine straw, but Camilla Thweatt-Searcy.
Okay, I know who she belongs to. She's the infant daughter of William Everard Hamilton Searcy Sr. and his wife Eugenia Paulina Searcy, and they were from Griffin, Georgia. He was, I think it's the equivalent of the clerk of court, and this is their infant child. January 18th, 1870 to April 2nd, 1871. I suspect that this is going to be Reba Searcy. It's another child for them.
Beautiful little lamb at the bottom. That's just something right there. Our little Reba, age so many years, so many months, 1880. Do you have those dates?
I do.
I cannot read them on here.
Well, no, I just have 1878 to 1880.
So about two years. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore.
It's so sad to see a cemetery, in this condition. Something that we know was once so grand and so special and important. And people always ask, and I ask too, why wouldn't the family take care of this? But you have to remember, this property, like I said earlier, it's privately owned. So the federal law says that you can come in here, but we never would have found this without the help of our friend Rick from the hunting club that leases this property. So, there are arrangements that have to be made, and of course we wanted to get the permission of the property owner. And also, starting with my grandfather's generation, he graduated high school in 1923 from Sidney Lanier School in Macon. There were no jobs. So he and his brothers went down to Miami, Florida, where things were booming. They had just put in the railroad. They could get jobs. So, people moved away.
And taking care of a cemetery is a lifetime commitment. So unless you live...
We're 5 hours away.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, it's just not practical.
It's not a thing. So, and honestly, we came in here and we cut all this stuff down, and we could see where stuff was cut before.
Yes.
So it doesn't take long.
Well, like I said, I think the family in Griffin, took care of it until they have, passed away and moved on. So, but it has obviously been a few years.
It's far off the road, back in the woods, and you never know that this was here. There's so much history in the woods all around us.
Absolutely.
I think we're going to break out some D2 now and
yes.
do a little bit of
we got work to do.
Preservation work on these stones. So I'm going to spray down Carrie's stone with the D2. We're just leaving it, letting it work and going to come back, but we should see a kind of cool color change that kind of tells us that the D2 is working. And I think you wanted to talk a little bit more about that.
So her father, Daniel Bartlett Searcy, he died August 1st of 1885 from heart problems. And then 2.5 months later, Carrie passed away. And according to the notice in the newspaper, she died at the home of her sister in Vineville, which is a part of Macon, a neighborhood in Macon. So I don't know if she had fallen ill. They said she was being cared for by her sister. So that was on November the 14th. The newspaper article was published on the 15th saying that her funeral was going to be on the 16th at her mother's home. So her mother was Camilla. So on the 16th they have this funeral, and Camilla died on the 19th. So, within 2.5 months, father, daughter, and mother all had passed away.
All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video and seeing this amazing cemetery here with us today. I saw it for the first time today. You saw it for the first time today. So it's really been kind of a special occasion out here. Hopefully we'll get an update on this at some point in the future. Maybe we can come back out here and
see how it looks.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Rich for leading us here today.
Yep, Lindsay
And,
for D2 application, Phil for gardening responsibilities. We're thanking you for your gardening assistance.
The bill will be in the mail this evening.
Okay.
Amazing place, amazing wall, amazing stories. Thank you for bringing me out here.
Thank you for helping us.
Well,
We couldn't do it without you.
You know,
Thank
I love
you.
this stuff.
I know.
And we will see you on the next adventure into history.